I'm only seeing names. This is the weirdest exercise class I've ever given because I can't see anybody. So I'm just going to trust that you guys are following along or you know, paying attention. But is there anything that Brianna can translate here? Any comments that came in?
Nope, no comments. But again, guys, if you want to take yourself off mute anytime that Gina's going through any of this, please do so. If you want to turn on your cameras, please do so. We want you guys to get the most out of this, so whatever you think will be the most helpful. And again, chat pane, if you have questions, I can stop Gina, or you can just shout it out yourselves. So, all you, Gina.
All right.
Take it away, Gina.
Excellent. So yeah, just to kind of bullet point mostly what I'm going to do here. So we talked about stress and we talked about movement in the workplace. The trickiest thing about it is that our jobs require us not to move. So how do you get movement into that? And the idea of stress, where we think about stress usually as like mental input and being overwhelmed. The physical stress of not moving is also what we're feeling. So we talk about feeling stress and tension in our shoulders. It's not just because of all of the mental processing, it's also because it's our body telling us it hasn't moved for a while and it needs to move. And doing these simple things, even though they're small, they're not big exercise routines, are going to help, as Bill said, flow. They're going to help you flow your circulation, your energy, your electrical current, your connection with your body. So to interpret these discomforts, your back pain, your thumb pain, all of that, almost like you know how to recognize hunger pangs or when you're thirsty. That's just your body saying it's deprived of movement. So, you know, intuitively we do move. These are just very specific movements you can do that you might not think to do when you're sitting at your desk, because it doesn't have to be a whole nother activity. We're going to start with just aligned sitting, and I'm going to put this out there mostly just for the purpose of doing our first little back movements, but again, there is no one static way that this is the be-all and end-all of how you want to sit now for the next 8 hours. It's still always about getting up and changing your positions, but we're going to at least start with just a better relationship with our chair for our back and our hips and head and neck. So, if you happen to have nearby, I know I gave some of these out at one of our lunch and learns in the past. If you have this handy, or if you have like a towel you can roll up or something, sometimes it makes it a little bit easier to get your pelvis in the right position. So to create a better, just aligned posture to start with the chair. Because one of the things that happens is we work once we realize, oh, I'm not sitting up straight, we put a lot of effort into trying to force the body into an upright position, which is a lot more work. And then as soon as you go back to doing what you're doing, you forget to create this new habit, so we end up slumping again. So setting ourselves up for success is just to be able to put your pelvis in the right position to begin with, so that the upper body doesn't have to work as hard to stay in alignment with gravity. So starting with sitting at the edge of your chair, and if your chair is very cushy, it gets a little bit more challenging to do this because you sink into the cushiness. But if you bring your pelvis up to the edge of your chair, and we're thinking about the called the sit bones, the bony protrusions of the pelvis in contact with the chair. Because one of the things that happens is when we're sitting, and where the slump begins is that the pelvis starts to roll back. This guy's got a very rigid pelvis, so I can't demonstrate that, but we roll back, sit on the sacrum, and everything else above it kind of follows. So getting your pelvis to be in alignment with the chair, and this is where sitting on either a rolled up towel or your half dome with the rounded side down can help, because then you can allow your pelvis to just rock forward a little bit, and then the rest of the upper body follows.
Could you maybe
Turn sideways. All right, so here's the difference. Here's the pelvis rolling back, And you can see when my upper back, head and neck kind of follow. Now if I bring the pelvis up and or put something under it to keep the pelvis straight up, then I don't have, it's a lot harder to fall forward, and everything else is just, it's a much more effortless way to be in alignment. Okay? So in any case, wherever you are with this, as much as you can, find yourself a comfortable position where your pelvis is in alignment, your upper body is straight, and then your feet are on the floor. And if you can't get your feet comfortably flat on the floor, if you need to raise them up with a book or something, but using your legs and feet as part of your alignment base too can be helpful. So we're just going to start with that. And if you want to have your hands on your lap or if you want to let them hang, but we want our shoulders to be relaxed here. You're just kind of moving wherever's a good, comfortable position for your pelvis to be, so your lower back can be relaxed, your spine is relaxed, the abdomen is relaxed. And then imagining that you have a string at the top of the head, and it's not a forced movement up, but just using your imagination to gently pull the top of your head up and creating this sense of elongation in the spine as the shoulders relax. Openness in the rib cage, openness in the abdomen. So there's going to be a lot of differences from person to person depending on what kind of restrictions you have in your body about how much ease there is just in this position, but hopefully you can kind of tweak your posture right here where you feel the greatest sense of ease and yet also not a crunching into your chest and your abdomen. And just take some nice breaths, really filling the whole belly, filling the rib cage. Exhale, let your shoulders drop. All right, the very first move we're going to do is just in this position, and actually the very first one might be the most uncomfortable of all of them, and it's for the reason why we tend to have a lot of low back pain is because we just don't do this movement. I'm going to turn to the side, and the idea here is, and if you have a half dome, it's a little bit easier to do this, but we're wanting to tilt the pelvis relative to the low back. So we're rocking it back and forth. And you can use your legs to push the pelvis back, but I'm not rounding the spine. I'm trying to get that motion of the pelvis moving forward and back. And that's going to really contact your lumbar, your sacroiliac joint, where we get a lot of our low back pain. You can use a little bit of abdominal contraction here to pull the pelvis back and then forward. So if this is hard for you, it could be one because it just, I'm not going to do that. That's really weird. But also because there is so much tension there that it's really hard to separate the pelvis from the back. So doing this in the privacy of your home can be very helpful, at least to attempt it. All right. I've been practicing this a lot today, and I'm feeling very good in my low back right now. All right, so next thing we're going to do is a little bit of lateral spine movement. So thinking about moving the rib cage from side to side. So you can either keeping your sit bones in contact with the chair, leaning your torso over where you're opening up the waist, or you can shift your rib cage over. So getting some lateral motion in the spine, which again is not something we normally do. Kind of using the abdominal muscles just to shift the rib cage side to side. You're going to come up against that mid-back tension that comes from trying to hold yourself in better posture all day. I just got a little pop there. That was cool. And again, doing it with the breath is very helpful, so nice and slow as you breathe into the center, exhale to the side. Okay, now continuing this relationship between the rib cage and the pelvis, because we also get so locked up that the whole torso tends to move as one big barrel. We want to be able to separate the movement between the rib cage and the pelvis. So again, thinking about your pelvis is rooted to your chair, and you're going to use your abdominal muscles to turn the rib cage. So if I place my hands on my lower ribs, you can see the movement here, turning the upper half relative to the lower half, as opposed to like twisting the whole torso where my cheeks coming off the chair. You're keeping that rooted and turning the rib cage.
And do that one very slowly.
And do this one very slowly. Bill is whispering to me. And we're not torquing, you're not grabbing the hands and pulling, you're using purely the force of your abdominal muscles. And you may not go that far, and that's okay. But just nice and slow, really talk about core strengthening here. This is one of the reasons why we lose our core strength to begin with, because we don't use this part of the body so much, just for normal movement. So if you're at your desk and, you know, our swivel chair has come to replace this movement. If you need to reach for something, think about using that as an exercise of how to reach for something that's over here, or over here, or up here. And get your arms in. All right, so those are some simple things just to do in a seated position, just for your low back on occasion. If you're feeling that stiffness in there, getting that, especially that back and forth movement, in can be very helpful.
Would you say that it would be helpful to, if somebody had a little timer and every 20 minutes it goes off and you just do that movement?
Yeah.
So you're getting it throughout the day?
Right, yeah, if you have a timer and that's helpful for you. We learn to ignore the timer too, but if that is helpful, ideally you get to a point where your body, you recognize the cues. We've learned to ignore the body cues too. So if using a timer at first helps you remember to move, and then you get to a point where, you know, you're feeling that tightness, and that will be your timer. It's like, oh, I haven't moved for a minute, you know, let me, and it just becomes a natural part of what you're doing anyway, rather than something separate from your work or whatever else you're doing. All right, so come back to our posture. We're going to come up to the head and neck. I'm going to start from the head and work down, because this is an area, head, neck, and shoulders is usually what screams the loudest in terms of stress and tension and all of that. So as we're in our aligned posture, and we have the pelvis in line with the chair, we have the rib cage stacked over the pelvis, shoulders are relaxed. Now the head, which is about 10 to 12 pounds, we want to make sure that we're bringing it in line with that center of gravity all the way down through the pelvis. So again, this is one of the things that's hard to remember to do when we're on the computer and we start coming forward. The head and neck start doing one of these things. So bringing everything's in alignment. You're going to take the chin and tuck it under slightly. Now what the ideal position we want here is that the ears are over the shoulders, so that the center of your head is actually in the center line with your upper body and rib cage. So it's a movement where we're not lifting the head up to bring it into alignment, we're shifting it back. So the plane of motion is like from here up to the wall behind us. And not so much that you're creating a lot of tension in the back of the neck to hold it there. Just think more repositioning and how far it will comfortably go. Your chin is tucked under slightly. And it's opening the back of the neck. So feel the difference there between here and here. Again, with that awareness of lifting the head up from by a string, and just really opening the neck, shoulder area. And then similarly to the low back, we're going to turn the head side to side. We're turning the head relative to the shoulders. Now again, you don't want to, we're not going into a full stretch all the way to the end of the range of motion. We're just thinking rotation and opening. And whenever you do any kind of head movements like this, you always want to make sure that you've ramped the head back first, because when we're in this position, we're creating the shearing force through the vertebrae and we're grinding on the cartilage. So we want to try to bring as much alignment into the neck as possible. Again, relaxing the shoulders. I'm going to breathe into the center and very slowly with the exhale, turn the head to the side. Again, only going as far if you're feeling like pulling, if you're feeling pain in the back of the neck, if you're getting stars in your eyes, because that happens too. That means you're going too far. So just back off a little bit. Just go to that easy barrier of tension and then coming back, inhale and exhale to the other side. Breathing in and breathing out. You might hear a lot of crunching, a lot of crackling. That's perfectly normal. And I will tell you, the more you do this, the less that will occur for you. And you might notice one side's a little tighter than the other. And that's perfectly normal too. So it should be a gentle, relaxed move. Again, we're not doing anything in these movements. I shouldn't say, there might be a couple things, but mostly we're not really focusing on stretching out pain. That's not the point of what we're doing. We're trying to introduce mobility and a softening of the tissue and just getting our body parts moving in ways that they're just not doing throughout the day.
Again, have the intention of self-massage.
Right, have the intention of self-massage. All right, let's come back to center. Tuck your chin under, or just drop the chin into the chest. Take a nice breath in, exhale, let your forehead drop forward. And as we come up again, come up from the back of the head first, so you're keeping your chin tucked slightly under. Now move for the back of the neck. If you have a lot of tension building up in the back of the neck, bring your hands together, interlock the fingers, bring them to the back of the skull, the occipital ridge there. We're going to breathe in, and as you breathe in, you're going to push the back of your head back towards the wall behind you and resist with your hands, so you're creating kind of an isometric stretch in the back of the neck. Nice breath in, and then very gently with the exhale, release. Drop the chin. And you're not going to force with the hands, but just kind of encourage a nice gentle stretch through the neck and probably into between the shoulders. And again, breathe in, push back. Exhale, release. If you're finding one side of your neck's a little bit tighter than the other, you can turn the head and push back in that direction. And stretch it out with the exhale. Come back, turn the other way, very slightly. Push back. And drop down. And coming up, release your arms, shake out the hands. Another nice thing you can do, and you can do this on any part of the body that you're feeling compression, tightness, stagnation, is percussion. This is what we call chi self-massage, and it's a wonderful way to get energy moving in any place that's tight, but we'll start with the back of the head. So you always want to use loose wrists. In other words, you're not, using very tight arms and fingers. Everything's loose. You can use fingertips. You can use, I'll demonstrate. So for the back of the head, again, we're going along that ridge of the skull. There's a lot of very small muscle attachments there, and that's where some of your headaches come from. And fingertips, We're going to go along that ridge, starting from just on either side of where the spine comes in, and then coming out to just behind the ears.
Do you want to turn so they can see?
I don't know if it makes a difference, we can see here. Go down a little bit into the neck muscles, or the ponytail in a way. You can come up along the top of the head. This is a wonderful thing where if you're finding, what do you call the brain fog? You've been thinking or, really using your head and eyeballs a lot, and you just get to a point where you just can't fit another thought or problem into your brain, to just clear your head a little bit with percussion. You can use fingertips here. You can use very loose fists. You can use it on your face. Helps around the eyes, the nose, the cheeks. And it's a way just to kind of take a breath, take a minute, clear your head. Take some nice breaths in and out while you're doing this. You can even come down into the chest. All right. So working our way down into the head, neck, shoulder relationship. So what am I going to say about this? I'm going to go directly to internal arm rotation. This is such a simple thing, and yet I will tell you from my experience that issues with shoulders, elbows, carpal tunnel, fingers, thumbs even, have so much to do with the fact that we are more often in internal rotation with the arms. And what I mean by that, so in a neutral position, the center of your humerus is in line with the center of the body. Internal rotation, the upper arm is rotated relative to the shoulder. Everything, almost everything we do has our arms in internal rotation. It's almost like having a sweater on that's too tight and it's pulled inward. All of the tissue, muscle, fascia is affected all the way down, even into the fingertips, where even if you want to open up, it's very tight going this way. The effect this has on the forearms, on the finger joints, it's pretty profound. Also into the upper chest, into the breast tissue, the armpits, the back of the neck. This is such an important range of motion to reclaim. So just starting with playing with our ability to externally rotate the arms. So if you have your arms by your side, think about where this is the anatomical elbow pit here. It's the opposite of your elbow. It's a good marker to have. And without pulling the shoulder blade back, can you rotate your upper arm? Can you rotate that elbow pit to face forward? And it might help if you brace your shoulder blade, because sometimes it's very easy to want to pull the shoulder blade back with it, especially if you don't have a lot of rotation here. Just see how far you can bring that arm in and out. So these are your rotator cuff muscles, which we often hear about how we injure them. This is what you're working here, usually in a motion they're not used to doing. So you can play with this by your side and bring the arm out. Different positions, it's going to change the sensation. It's a little bit trickier the further out you come from the body, but you can start to feel that tension into the front of the shoulder. Try the other side. One, again, might be easier to do than the other. Bill's making faces over there. Yeah.
All right, I can come back over my lap.
Yes, and clicking. There might be some clicking here. Oh, little guy there. So we're really just rotating that humeral head in the shoulder joint. I don't know if that's helpful to see a visual of what's happening, if it even works on there.
You lost your shape.
Yeah, it's not a very good, he's got like 0 range of motion here, so we won't use that. But essentially, this is the relationship we're working with here, is this bone relative to the shoulder blade, okay? All right, so now to kind of bump it up a notch, just to give you an idea of how that relationship affects other things, I'm going to bring the arm out. And again, making sure that your shoulder blade's not rising up to your ear. Try to bring your elbow pit up. Tuck the chin under, and we're going to drop the ear to the opposite shoulder. And that's going to give you a little bit of information about the relationship between your externally rotated or internally rotated arm and your neck and head, and you can either toggle the head and neck around to really get a sense of that line of tension. And again, this movement is helpful from a mobility perspective, but we're not trying to stretch the pain out. There's a lot of attachments, your rotator cuff muscles, your arm muscles that are all, if you're feeling pain, there's hindrance there, there's compression, and stretching this isn't going to help that. We're just trying to help you introduce a little bit of movement in there so you can both experience what's happening as well as hopefully encourage some opening. But I don't want you to overstretch it trying to make it go away, if that makes sense. You bring the arm back a little bit, forward. Coming down. Now if you want to use some chi self-massage here as well, you can give a little pounding on your upper trapezius, down the arm. The spots right above and below your shoulder or your elbow are really good to give some percussion to. This actually helps relieve tension in the shoulder. All right, let's go to the other side. So I'm going to bring an arm out. Again, elbow pit in as much as you can up or even behind you if it will go that far. Tuck the chin under slightly and lower the ear to the opposite shoulder. If you have your hand here, you can feel all of those little muscles flickering on and off and moving, and the tendons. There's a lot being affected here. Let's bring that down, and if you want, as a bonus move, well, there's two moves. Here's another rotation move for the arms. It's called the waiter. So you're keeping your upper arms by your rib cage, hands are face up, and then rotating the arms out while keeping contact with your rib cage. How far of that movement can you do? Now the cheating would be pull the shoulders back and also to thrust the rib cage. So you want to keep that motion just at the shoulder joint. And so even if you don't want to get into all of this when you're, doing your work, you can at least just take a break, put your hands in the opposite position, and move at the shoulder joint. And then another one I like to do is just bringing the arm behind the back, with the back of the hand against the back. That's going to open up all of this area. And again, you can bring the head to the side if you like. And switch. These things don't take long. You don't have to do all of them, but just, if you have a second, you're in conversation with somebody, you're waiting for something to load, you can just take a moment to put your body parts in a different position than the default one. All right. So shoulders, arms, let's do some more with the arms. We're going to bring the arms out and pushing through the palms. This is going to start stretching into the forearms and the wrist, that part of our too tight sweater. Fingertips toward the sky. You can bring the fingertips behind. And making sure that the shoulders aren't creeping up into the ears. Try to bring the shoulders down. Just even this move in itself is gives a lot of sensation, let's say. It's a nice way of saying, ow. Bring them out front. So again, any movement that we are doing that isn't just this is going to be helpful. It's very nourishing to the tissues. It's encouraging just a different way for the body to move. It's encouraging circulation. Bring the palms together, shoulders down, a little bit of stretch through the palms, the forearms, pressing the palms together. It's funny too, I call it the deflate button, but sometimes I'll just impromptu do some of these moves, and I'll always find one that just makes me really deeply exhale. It's like, that's where I was holding the tension. It's not always neck, shoulders. Sometimes it's something I didn't even expect. Fingertips down. Reverse prayer hands, so the backs of the hands come together. This is another easy one that's makes you want to put your shoulders up. So as much as you can keep the shoulders down, bring the backs of the hands together. Just to get a nice stretch through the back of the wrists. Can you reach your thumbs together? A little bit more for the hands. So keeping your upper arm next to the rib cage, keeping your hand in line with the shoulder, and the fingers in line with the hand and the forearm. We start with the pinky and just gently stretch the pinky down. And the intention we're going for is not just to stretch at the pinky joint, but also into the palm and the wrist. Do each finger. You'll notice with some, if there's a lot of tension in it, it's going to want to go off to the side. So try not to go so much for distance in stretch, but just keeping everything in alignment with the hand, even if it doesn't go quite as far. And also, if they're bending, try to keep the joints extended and straight. And then with the thumb, we're going to grasp it like a joystick, if anybody remembers those, and just gently rotate the thumb in the thumb joint. A few times in each direction. And we'll shake it out. We'll do the other side. Cracking in that one. And some of these you really can feel, the pull all the way up into the forearm. And then grasp the thumb. So again, just to reiterate, sometimes we do have these downstream issues, and sometimes they are issues at that site, but it always helps to think of the whole structure going upstream as well. Sometimes we don't even think that what's happening in the hands is really a result of just not having the trunk structure flexible enough. That's why it's always good to work with the whole body. As I say, everything's connected. The last one I'll do for the upper back is one you can do with your chair if you have the freedom of movement to do this. This is a wonderful stretch for the shoulders and the mid-back. So coming to the back of your chair, height is key here. Being able to get the right proportions here. So I'm gonna have to stand way back, feet under the hips, and we're gonna bend towards the back of the chair. And you wanna make sure that you're not curling and rounding the back, that you're hinging at the hips, back is straight. So you need to maybe reposition your feet to where you have enough distance to get all the way down where your hands are on the chair. And you're gonna bend forward and stretching through the arms, the shoulders, and then the rib cage. When I get to a comfortable line of stretch, and this may be as far as you can go, but if you want to go further, pull your pelvis, your lower body, away from the chair, and it's going to create a nice opening all through here and through the arms. And then lowering the head down through the arms. Bringing your shoulder blades up, away from the pelvis. And then for an added bonus, you can bring one hand on top of the other. I say bonus a lot, don't I?
Makes them think they're getting a bargain.
Well, sure. Lots of bonuses. And then bring your other hand over. Again, you might notice one side's a little bit more willing than the other. All right. That's the kind of thing, if you need a break to get up and walk around and you can think about doing that, that's a nice move to do, as well as stretching in a doorway. If you can reach the top of your what they call the door jamb, which there's so few in my house I can do, but anytime you can get your arms up and over the head is also really wonderful for the whole head, neck, shoulder, arm thing. We have 2 minutes left. All I'm going to suggest after this, I'm not going to finish the rest, but also don't always think that you have to sit in this 90-degree angle all the time either. We're taught that that's perfect ergonomic posture, but again, your body needs movement. It needs to be able to extend and stretch and get out of those positions. So having a footrest under your desk if you can, or if you can get your feet up against the wall, just so you can get that extension through the legs. Just like we rotated the arms, you can rotate the femurs so you have movement in your hips, bringing your feet back and forward, rotating the ankles. Like, these are not exercises per se, they're just things that, would be very helpful to do for your body.
Yeah, and again, don't think of them even in terms of stretches. Think of them as moving postures. Real quick, before we sign off, one of the things that we're accomplishing and why this is considered a form of self-massage, really, the stiffness that we often feel is not coming from the muscles or the bones, it's coming from the fascia. And fascia grows in sheets, and that's a whole topic, but one of the things that fascia has to be able to do is glide over top each other. So if you have a muscle that's encased in fascia, myofascia, and it's next to another muscle that's encased in fascia, those two muscles have to be able to glide and slide over top each other for range of motion. If those muscles are next to each other for a long period of time, the fascia starts to adhere to itself, and it actually kind of grows itself together. So now when you go to move, oh, I've got low back pain, oh, my thumb hurts, my neck hurts. The problem may be that the fascia has started to adhere to itself. And the only way around that, to solve that problem, is motion, movement. Weightlifting's not going to do it. Yoga's not even going to do it. As good as those things are, a little bit. But mostly that flowing movement, it's why we like Qigong and Tai Chi so much. That's a big part of your restorative movement. So just remember that that's what you're accomplishing with these movements. It's not stretching. It's getting your body to unstick itself from itself, which is what happens when we're in the same position.
We call it glomming.
Glomming? You heard it here first, folks. Don't be a bunch of glommers out there. So I guess that's pretty much what we have to say. Any questions, thoughts, comments on that? Open it up to you, Brianna.
So we had a couple people write in that they were really enjoying all those stretches, Gina. So would you guys have those to share with them somehow?
Sure.
Have a printout of them? Yeah. So if you could share those with me, and then you guys, all the participants, if you would like them, just email me. I'll put my email in the chat so that you guys can just shoot me an email if you want them. And then the only other thing I thought of personally was if you guys could send me, with that handout, send all of your websites so that I can share that with them as well.
Oh,
'cause
absolutely.
I think that's also a great resource. So.
Sure.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining today. This is exciting, and this is our first Zoom lunch and learn. So there you have it.
You guys did awesome. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Everyone's just writing in. Thank you very much. Very informative. So thank you guys so much for everything.
Well, thank you. This was great. It's good seeing you, such as it is.
Well,
Seeing your names. It's good seeing your names.
Until we meet again, remember, your body is a miracle.
But it doesn't have to be a mystery.